Okay, all of these videos in their own way are kind of abstract. I feel like these are very much niche videos. Niche videos. That there are certain people who might really enjoy them if they ever run across them. And a lot of people will be like, what is this guy doing? Who is this guy? This one, more so perhaps than even the others, because I'm going to talk about fact, opinion, and interpretation, or how I want to think about these three things. And I've been thinking about this topic for a long time, and I'm sure there's somebody who's written on it better than me, and I'm sure I'm borrowing some of this from other people, and they deserve credit, and I'll probably figure out who they are eventually. If I ever write anything about this, I'll have to research that and figure out exactly who I'm borrowing from. Probably, I don't know, Gadamer and Lonergan without even realizing it in part, but probably other philosophers and theologians that I should realize that I'm borrowing from and don't. So I'm going to talk about fact, opinion, interpretation in my own little cartoonish way. There are more sophisticated accounts of these things, but this is kind of how I've thought about them for a long time, and we'll see what good I can do talking about these things. So first we'll talk about facts. For the most part, people believe in facts, and they should, because certain things happen, and we become aware of them, and we can say, this is this way, this is that way. For example, my glasses are in a book right now. You can't see it, but trust me, my glasses are sitting over there on a book. And if you were here and you looked at that, we could both agree with that. If we looked at pictures of a crowd in Washington, D.C., and we could verify when those pictures were taken and what they were of, then if we looked at other pictures of another crowd at Washington, D.C., and we could verify when those were taken and what they were of, we could say one crowd is bigger than another crowd. And that could be a fact. And presumably we could agree on that. And we could definitely do it if we could actually count them and see how many people there are. And then we could say there are 1,000 people in this crowd and 500 people in this crowd. 1,000 is greater than 500, and therefore there are more people in the crowd of 1,000 than there are 500. That's just an example. The point is that there are things that are kind of facts that we can look at and agree upon theoretically. There are other things that often seem to us like facts that are more elusive, because sometimes the way that we construct reality is different than other people, even about very basic things. What you consider to be snow might seem to someone else to be rain, to take a silly example. But the point is that there are some things that seem like uncontestable facts to one person because of their life experience. Another person might witness the same event and interpret some portion of that a little bit differently and come out of it arguing that the thing is not quite the fact that you say. So that's the weird part of this whole fact thing, is that there are circumstances like that too. There are also opinions, and there are different ways that people use the word opinion. One of the ways people use opinion is to say, like, my favorite flavor of ice cream is chocolate. My favorite flavor of ice cream is strawberry. And when people use opinion in that very personal, very arbitrary way, opinion has very little value. It tells you something about the person who is saying it, but depending upon the way that they do that and the way that they use it, it doesn't give you much information. It doesn't really allow the possibility of conversation or change. Perhaps you could give them a different flavor of ice cream, they would like it better, and they would change their opinion. And perhaps not. Perhaps their opinion isn't really based on even what they like the most, it's just based on their sense of self. They're the kind of person that likes this thing, and therefore they're not going to like anything else. With some opinions, that's actually all they're based upon. And in the middle, and yet in some way encompassing both, is interpretation. So I will sometimes correct my usage of the word opinion and switch it to the word interpretation, because I think most of the time we're engaged in interpretations of facts and of opinions. So if someone is ill and I diagnose them, I'm a doctor of theology, but I'm not a doctor of medicine. And so my attempt to diagnose a person who has an illness that I don't understand is not going to be very good. My opinion or my interpretation is not based on knowledge, most likely. It is based on, or to the degree it is based on knowledge, it's based on a very limited set of knowledge. It could be that if I've seen a particular illness before and someone has those exact same symptoms, that I could say, oh, you probably have this, and I could be right. There are cases where that's possible. But in general, a person trained in medicine is going to be able to offer a better opinion, better interpretation, one might say, of what has happened to them than I can. And my thinking that I have that level of understanding and knowledge about a subject that I'm not trained in is kind of ludicrous. In our society right now, we have a lot of people who necessarily, is that the right word? Who, for whatever reason, I should say, have come to the position that people who are trained in something actually don't know as much about it as outsiders. So politically, we've had this wave of dislike for kind of the traditional political animals, and we're choosing instead people who don't have any experience with the hope that they will be able to overturn the old system and make things better. And I do understand part of that desire, because it does seem like Washington has become pretty filled with corruption, and so people want to get rid of the corruption. Again, G.K. Chesterton, often he says something in Orthodoxy, something to the effect of, don't say that the rich man is above corruption because he cannot be bribed. He has already been bribed. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that notion, that in fact the rich very much do have something that they've already gained and they don't want to lose. And someone, just because they're wealthy, is not necessarily more trustworthy than someone who is less wealthy. When you elect them to office, they are perhaps even less trustworthy. I will leave it unspoken about what I am referring, but you can probably figure it out. So that's just my little bit about facts, opinion, and interpretation. I have a lot I can say on this topic, and I don't want to go too long because I'm too likely to. I'm already at 7 minutes. So maybe I'll do one more after all where I kind of talk about it a little bit more, and then I'll conclude for the day. Thank you.